Hello, welcome to a video to hopefully help you guys select what melee class that you guys would like to play. I also kind of go over multiple things about the class and what its current state is, and kind of like the meta for solo ranked. It's not really a tier list, but hopefully gives you a lot of useful information. Alright, going into Guardian and Juggernaut. Juggernaut's playstyle is more so, I guess, the warrior / knight playstyle, which is aggressive. They're kind of designed to be that way. Getting leap on warrior is rather important. For example, it gives you 20% DR and CC immunity for vengeance. However, for rage, it gives you raging burst and smash auto crit for rage. There's only ones with an AoE mez centered around them, and it's instant. This makes a warrior a bigger threat to less coordinated groups and players. If they clump up, they can mez the whole team by themselves without using a grenade, with potential to follow if your grenade, of course, someone breaks. While Agent could do the same thing, it's a far tighter radius. Now to show you real quick, since I'm already on my Juggernaut, this is the unstoppable icon right here, but I also have CC immunity during those 4 seconds. I also happen to have 20% DR during those 4 seconds because of Brawn, which is built in CC immunity plus the DR. And then this is the unstoppable utility, which gives you immunity to push and pull effects, and movement and bearing. However, Juggernaut doesn't really stop there. An example, it can do the only single target directional push in the game, which also resets their leap, along with the standard hard stun, force choke, and the utility for Ravage Root and Saber Throw Root. Juggernaut has the tools to control a single target really well, including taunts. It also can support its allies at the same time with Intercede, not only for movement, but to give DR to allies, and finally it has access to guard. Now to do a quick little overview of its defensives, it does have a Reflect, which is 1 minute cooldown, reflects for 3 seconds on base. You can take the utility to make it last for 5 seconds. I do feel the Reflect is a little bit lackluster at this point, but it's still very good. Saber Ward is definitely showing its age. While it's really good against white damage in the first second, it's pretty much full immunity to white damage. You only have 25% absorb to yellow damage for 12 seconds. It seems kind of good. It's really not. Not for a 3-minute cooldown. 25% of like a 60k is not very much. They're still hitting you very hard, and they're hitting it very consistently, because most classes that do yellow damage at the moment are hitting 40 to 60k almost every GCD, which is very deadly, and part of the reason why Juggernaut is the #1 target and is targeted for, the lack of a better word, no escape. For the most part, going through the DCDs is no big deal. Reflect is the only thing that yellow damage has to watch out for. Going through healing DCDs is easy. As a Juggernaut, using your healing DCDs, you want to watch out for using your Endure Pain. If I was getting hit right now, my health would be going down, of course, but if I happen to get out of combat or, mad dash as it's about to fall off, I would technically keep my health. However, it doesn't always work. It is a very good idea, if you ever use Endure Pain, to follow up a med pack and just try to mad dash at the very last second when it's about to fall off to prevent yourself from dropping all the way down to 1 HP and falling right there. While that's not going to be a reliable, situation or solution, it is definitely something that you should try to do, because then it can increase your survivability by a ton. Typically what will happen is if you're taking damage and you can't escape damage, and if you use Endure Pain, usually use it as a last ditch effort, and you'll pop Endure Pain and Medpack and maybe a journal if you haven't used it already, and try to survive or maybe get away, trying to parry your mad dash, obviously with Endure Pain as it falls off, so you can prevent it from falling pretty much immediately. But let's say you can't, you're gonna potentially drop all the way down to 1 health, and obviously at 1 health, pretty much anything will, end pretty much that story right there. For the most part, Your defensives are pretty weak, but your control is very good. So if you can stop whoever is the biggest threat to you by controlling them, it will definitely save you. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you force push here because you can't push this guy, but I can show you that I can reset my leap. I got the normal, choke, and then the awe. For the most part, yes, your control is great. However, there are a lot of purges in the game, so you want to make sure that if you're going to use something like a Ravage root or Saber Throw root, for example, you want to make sure that the targets maybe use their force speed or predation or something before you try to use it, because then you can make sure you can get that root on them and they can't get away. For the most part, Juggernaut is still a controlling powerhouse, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. Since 5.0, Mercenary took over with gaining 3 healing DCDs, beating out Juggernaut's 2 healing DCDs as the most in the game. Now with that amount of damage in game, Juggernaut's defensives are definitely starting to show their age. They crumble under heavy damage and lack any sort of real escape or a strong DCD for players to swap off of them. Warriors, as a whole, need support to do well in most situations. In 6.0, they're doing a lot more damage than ever, but are weaker than ever defensively so far. Typically, the common Juggernaut that you'll see today is playing Vengeance. It's the AoE spec for them, and they will have CC immunity after 4 seconds of leaping to the target, with the utility to make them immune to knocks, pushes, and pulls, as I went over before. After that window, it's not too difficult to turn on them, but certainly don't let them do what they want, because they have more than enough damage to take care of anything they hit. For the most part, that is currently what I am playing. So what you'll likely to see, these are the simple abilities that the class can do. As you can see, I'm hitting really hard on this. These are typically what your max hits will be, because this is the level 10 dummy. If you guys ever want to, come and see like what you can potentially hit, this dummy is very good. I do not have augments on, so it definitely can be higher. And the one you'll see much more or less than Vengeance will definitely be Rage. It's a burst spec for Juggernaut. It does not gain CC immunity on leap, and it's much easier to turn on. I have a bit less control overall. As it is the burst spec, it does even more damage, but it's single target instead. So the main perks of playing Rage, for example, is you get the Intercede that breaks roots. I said that right. Sorry, my bad. You get the Intercede that does break roots, and it also has a reduced cooldown, I believe. I don't know which one it is here, but we can find it real quick. Pretty sure you might get it early. If not, really, I guess you get it late then. My bad. Oh, here it is. Okay, additionally, Intercede now purges all movement and parrying effects. I'm pretty sure somewhere else it also reduces cooldown. Intercede is really low on the cooldown for Rage, which is nice, however, it's still lacking defensively compared to Vengeance, because it does not get the CC immunity / DR on leap, even though that DR is minimal at best. It will do a lot of damage, mostly with white. However, the heaviest hitting yellow damage it has is Raging Burst and Force Scream, and Retaliation will ignore DCDs, so there's nothing you can really do about that one. Now, going into the best in slot for Juggernaut, you'll most likely see Descent of the Fearless, which I'll show you real quick. It's the set. Whenever you use a Fierce Power charge while in combat, your damage increased by 10% for 10 seconds. Dealing damage has a 10% chance to build a Fierce Power ability charge. It can only happen every 5 seconds. When you're playing Vengeance, for example, you have a lot of chances to build your 10% chance to get a Fierce Power charge. So you can almost always keep maximum uptime in Fierce Power, which basically, is permanent uptime, nearly. So that means you're getting a 10% damage boost at all times from your set, but you're also getting more stacks of your Furious Power. So, for example, I could sit here the entire time and use 10% damage increase forever while still getting more stacks. As you see, I've already gotten another one. So on top of that, not only am I gaining 10% at all times, I'm also able to get another 25%. So if I use this ability for white damage, it will proc, it'll make my impel here. Well, if that was a crit, it would have hit harder. Basically, it increases your white damage, which is great. But a 10% damage increase overall is really good. That's even better for Rage. Mind you, you can hit really hard as Rage at the moment. With the Paramount Pooled Hatred, which increases up to 50% damage increase. So whenever your movement is impaired, you gain 10%, stacks up to 5 times, lasts for 15 seconds. This allows you to hit like a truck when you're actually being controlled yourself. Now I'll lay out the pros and cons of this class while I go on to basically the closing notes. Juggernaut compares to the rest of the classes as nearly bottom of the barrel defensively, while good in regular war zones due to lack of coordination and varying levels of gameplay styles. It suffers in non-supportive matches for solo ranked. Multiple bear specs can easily chew through everything a Juggernaut has defensively in just a few seconds, leaving them the target almost always. With support, it's still going to be the target, but it will have more chances to dish out some major damage. I'd recommend this class for those people that like melee and aren't looking to play solo ranked. While it can be done, it's not easy. MMO PvP is mostly game knowledge and with know-how. You'll definitely know when you're ready to try solo ranked. Alright, now to get into Marauder / Sentinel. Marauder playstyle remains the same as Warrior as a whole, aggressive. Getting your leap off is still very important, giving auto crits for Scream and Raging Burst for Fury. Again, like Juggernaut, it being a warrior, it's got an AoE mez that's centered around them, and it's instant. It's the only class in the game to have a group purge and a movement speed increase for everyone. It's also got a 10% defense chance increase at 30-second cooldown with 10-second duration. It's also got one of the raid buffs called Bloodthirst, and it has 2 sabers, which is obviously better than 1, right? Well, being just as aggressive as Juggernaut, Marauder stands out by itself with Fury stacks, depending on the spec. For example, I'll show you what that is right now. When you glow like this, or you have 3 stacks, you're then able to use the ability called Berserk. While in Carnage, it gives you a bonus alacrity and allows you to gain an extra armor pen stack on your ability called Ferocity. For Fury, it gives you Rage and a Destruction proc. Then while playing Annihilation, it makes your dots crit and heals you and your group for 1% of max health. With 6 charges, I guess stacks you could call it. While not having any real healing options like other classes, it's still a big threat with the tools that Warrior has in Predation on top of it, so it's always nice to have on your team. It's got great damage reduction, which is DR for short. Key abilities to look out for is Score, hindering the target from using movement abilities and escapes for 1.5 seconds. Another being Force Crush, slowing the target from 50% move speed to 5% move speed in 3 seconds. And that's not a reduction of how much it is. You'll immediately get taken down to 50% movement speed all the way down to 5%. The wording on that is really weird, but it is a huge slow. Also, you get CC immunity for 6 seconds, every 3 seconds with Force Crush. To show you real quick what that looks like, so you guys can, we'll regard this, we'll hit this one. What this Force Crush immunity looks like. It's a little bit different for Republic. I think it's a little bit harder to see on Republic, but depending whether there's Saber Ward up or not, you'll have an easier time finding it. But spill some Rage. On Marauder, you see this circle right here. It's particularly coming from their stomach, but if you ever see this, this means CC immunity. It's down now. There's also Blood Ward, which is a utility. Whenever they have a circle around their head, basically like that, that means they're immune to CC. For Republic, I can't show you, but that one is a utility, lasts for 6 seconds too. So that's 12 seconds in total of CC immunity. Defensively, they need to be quick on their DCDs as they cannot regain health easily. Getting caught out and losing a lot of health is very rough. This class is the least mistake friendly, but rewarding when played well. It's got a rather unique ability called Undying Rage, like Gut Bubble from Sorcerer, however you can still do things. Currently, Marauder's playstyle in Ranked is mostly relying on Forced Camouflage to mitigate and avoid, or flat out running away and hoping to get combat reset and rechinning. Its stealth only lasts for 6 seconds, or no, 4 seconds and then 6 seconds with the utility. I'll show you that real quick. So this is Undying Rage. You take extended duration to make it last for 6 seconds instead of 4, I believe. Yep, and it also gives you some CD reduction was set by 30 seconds, so it's 2 minute 30. The 6 seconds one is nice, but I wish it would give more CDR. It's probably one of your best defensives, so be very picky about how you use it. A good way to do it is to use it on net most of the time. Usually if you get netted, you can tell if you're about to take a lot of damage or not. Then Force Camouflage is this. With this tactical right here, I can then hit Predation, and I'll have camo again. Meaning I can have 12 seconds of camo each time I have Predation up if I wait the cooldown for Force Camouflage. This is basically what the solo ranked playstyle is, with this tactical and occasionally using Life Warden. Now as for sets, you will most likely see Descent of the Fearless, which I'll show you my gear real quick. I'm not ogged, I'm not min-maxed in any way. I could definitely fix that, but I figured it's not too important. I will have information for that kind of thing, if you guys are interested in that. Obviously it'll probably be pinned in the comments. Tacticals varies, as none of them are extremely strong for all situations, but for Fury, that's basically the one that you'll see the most, and you'll probably see double cloak with that. Between Saber Ward utility and the CC immunity of Force Crash, you have 12 seconds of CC immunity, which is why Fury is so popular. It also does good damage and has a little bit easier time staying on target, while still being able to camo for 6 seconds and then Predation resetting it to do it again. Definitely see that the most in solo ranked if you've seen a Marauder. Other tacticals, they just give them a slight DPS increase, so you often don't see somebody without double cloak. Only ones you can really stop are the AoE Annihilate and Faint God form. Obviously, if going against Annihilation, you should spread out in the first place, but Annihilation just, in general, is lacking the tools to keep people together, so they don't really excel too great in PvP. However, their single target damage is doing really well right now. It also doesn't have CC immunity, so it's only got the 6 second on Blood Ward, just Saber Ward. It's just a utility. Faint God form will allow Carnage to spam Massacre. Massacre is a white damage ability. It's a replacement for Slash. It's a filler. Any defense chance increases or accuracy debuffs will straight up neuter the damage from Faint God form. Rarely will you probably see somebody actually using it, but if you do see it, you can increase your defense chance or just apply accuracy debuff to him, and his damage will go down by a ton. I'll show you guys quick just to see how much damage you're roughly going to see. Ideally, you'll probably want to use your Fierce Power a little bit sooner than I did, but that's fine. For the most part, you're hitting around 50k. At least like around max hits. I see the 74k. However, that's not very realistic. You're not going to hit that very often, if at all. While the damage is good, it doesn't hit as high as, a lot of other things at the moment. Rotation for Fury is super easy and has no rage management issues. Highly recommend learning it. It's still the same as it used to be, so if I still don't have a guide for Marauder yet, you can always go watch my previous one, which I believe I pinned like a infinite rotation. I'm not sure if I did or not. If I didn't, just feel free to ask me, I'll probably help you out. But, however, Marauder overall is a strong class. I'm going to put the pros and cons in the background so you guys can read that. I'll go over how it's kind of placed in current meta. Marauder's whole double camo with predation is pretty awkward. Getting caught by a stealther while trying the regen is nearly always a death, so your playstyle has to adapt. Camouflaging out early can be effective if they're going for you to stall time. In sport games, it's even more solid, however, often falls short in DPS games compared to stealthers in the current meta. In regular war zones, the aggressive playstyle really changes the way your team must play. If they're not up there with you, you have to be very aware of what's going on. Since you do not have any healing DCDs, you have to rely on camouflage to get out of bad engagements to save health. And that will be something that you do a lot. You also have to deal with what's trying to take you out first. Otherwise, you need to be mindful when playing defensively, using line of sight to bait the range to come closer, and using predation to press forward. If you're looking for a fast-paced melee, I highly recommend Marauder. At least after learning the basics of the game. It's not an easy class to tackle right away. The most difficult part is just learning how to use your DCDs while staying on target. Not your rotation or your rage management. Warrior excels with support, but Marauder will excel even more than Juggernaut with support right now. Now to cover Powertech and Vanguard. Powertech's playstyle is just as aggressive as Warrior, with AoEs and mid-range abilities with AP. Typically, you'll want to leave in just like Warrior and pull anyone that is away from the group for Carbonize. Carbonize is the only AoE stun in the game outside of Stun Grenade. So this is what Carbonize is, which is pretty nice, AoE stun. It's got a utility to extend and increase the movement speed buff of Hydraulics, so it's Hydraulics. Making it very fast, with the ability up and immune to roots and slows. While it does great damage, single target and AoE, its new DC really helps with survivability, especially thanks to Meteor Roller that is a huge threat right now. This is a set bonus that explodes after explosive fuel runs out or it gets clicked off, which I'll show you what that is right now. So I'd pop this, and this goes per person for the stacks. So if I was hitting multiple people, I would get 7 stacks nearly right away. You also get 75% heat reduction for 20 seconds after it falls off. So that was 105k. I could hit a lot more if I had Augs, but I don't right now. Also, Powertech's Firefall, which is what it's called for Powertech. It's Ironfall for Republic. Currently, Superheated Fuel is super critting Firefall, and it's not doing it to Ironfall, so there is some imbalance between Vanguard and Powertech, unfortunately. However, moving into Culto for Pyro, it's stronger than AP's Culto. However, AP's Energy Shield is a lot better than Pyro's. Powertech before the sub bonus and tactical, and the new DCD. It was a rather strong class, like in general for group play. Now it's a major threat that needs attention paid to it. While previously it was an obvious target and an easy kill, it's now harder to kill and sometimes better to swap off of it momentarily for things like Culto and Pyro. And Pyro gets CDR for Culto when it gets hit, and for AP, you get CDR for Energy Shield when it gets hit. So each respectively have their own kind of unique thing for their defensives, which is pretty cool. However, Powertech takes it a little bit further and has not DR. Lethality also has it, but this is one of the 2 classes that have it. There's nothing else like this in the game besides Lethality. That with AoE DR plus Culto DR, you can get to be rather tanky against a lot of things without having power yield up. However, when your power yield and Culto are down, you don't really have much to answer DCD wise. You still have like Energy Shield and Med Pack. However, you're kinda screwed after that. So, in most DPS games, not the best situation. You can also take Reflect on your AoE, which, or not your AoE, but your AoE taunt. In Pyro, there's a cooldown reduction, I think it's here? No. So one of these things that lowers the cooldown of your AoE taunt, which is an interesting thing. Okay, so reduces the cooldown of Sonic Missile by 10 seconds. So if you take Sonic Rebounder, not only do you have a lower cooldown of Sonic Missile, which is 35 seconds, it's normally 45, you can get a AoE reflect for everybody. So as long as they're hit like within the AoE circle of your Sonic Rebounder, so I'll show you real quick. This AoE, as long as they're in that AoE, they'll get a little buff around them that will reflect one ability, which is pretty good. And if you have multiple Pyro players on the same team, it can end up being really, really good. However, in all, you'll still be like, your main job will still be to pull somebody and carve outside of just doing damage. That is something unique that Powertech can do, and is very impactful on the game. Set bonus you most likely see is Meteor Brawler tied with Superheated Fuel. For Powertech, Superheated Fuel is not affecting Ironfall, as I said before. It's only affecting Firefall, so tactical won't be common for Vanguards. Outside that, Explosive Weaponry will be the most seen once Firefall is also fixed. Then potentially we'll see Right Press make a return if Meteor Brawler gets a considerable nerf, maybe. And going into AP, probably the most unique thing about AP is that it has a lot of burst during Shoulder Cannon, and also Thermal Detonator is a delayed explosion, so you are stacking Thermal Det plus either Magnetic Blast / Energy Burst plus the Shoulder Cannon almost all at the same time, so you can get a lot of burst in Shoulder Cannon window, or whenever you have Thermal Detonator up. It is a really solid burst spec. Now in the background I'll put the pros and cons of this class. There's not too many cons, surprisingly. Powertech in the meta is a solid class. While it doesn't thrive in 4v4 DPS matches, it can do a lot when played well. It's sort of a gamble currently playing Powertech in solo ranked. You need to hope for another class that can guard, then cross guard Life Warden each other. Typically you can take up to 1 million plus in DPS game if you get guard at the right times with Life Warden. Without Life Warden you're rather weak, but you still do have good chances of getting a kill. Some situations you are far less impactful than other classes. AP is very, very squishy and solo ranked. Outside of Power Yield, you're pretty much done for after Power Yield's gone. So if you're not getting guard, you don't really have anything else to ride on. However, if a healer and tank happens to be in the game, you become much more impactful, because typically how much healing a healer can do, or how much a guard can do for you, is a lot more than any other class in the game. Powertechs benefit the most from support, and it usually gives them enough time to secure a kill. In regs, Powertech is a bit harder for players to deal with, as AoE specs and dot specs are common in regs, meaning you're benefiting from AoE DR and dot DR nearly all the time. Then also getting CDR for Kolto. Sometimes in matches versus lethality, you'll get Kolto up to 10 times, which is pretty insane. Overall, if you're looking for a strong melee that isn't too hard to play, I would highly suggest Powertech. You'll not only easily do damage, you'll have a more relaxed time using your DCDs compared to other classes. Out of personal opinion, I recommend Powertech over AP, because Powertech is just basically better because of Kolto DR. So when your Kolto triggers, it heals you up to 35%, but you get 30% DR during the duration of this. So if you're never hitting back up to 35%, Kolto is going to just keep triggering and triggering and triggering. So you're going to have Kolto DR for quite some time, and that's really going to save you. In most situations, at least, make you last longer than AP. Now covering Assassin / Shadow. Assassin's playstyle is more about control and burst. It has a lot of tools to do many different things. You can sap players just like Operative, which is a mez out of combat from stealth, with Shroud and CC immunity on deflection, giving it up to 11 seconds of CC immunity. It's rather hard to deny it from what it wants to do. It can take knockback with a root. Instant mez has a mini mez and a from stealth stun along with a standard hard stun. Control is where it shines, but burst is where it excels. I'll show you real quick how much burst it's kind of doing at the moment, which is pretty crazy for the most part. Get up to 80k mauls. However, I am hitting the level 10 dummies, so you probably won't see like these consistent hits. So that was 82k right there. You get 3 auto crits for your maul, so typically you kind of want to save it for duplicity, but not always. You can always use stuff out to reset your recklessness and do it all over again, which is part of why Deception is able to do so much burst right now. It is very deadly. However, its dot spec is not as strong as its burst spec, but it is still rather easy to play and brings a lot of pressure overall. It's definitely one of the most enjoyable melee dot specs in game, in my opinion. However, it is rather squishy by default by being a Sen and not able to take advantage of CC. While its burst spec does a lot of damage, there is some things to learn about it. Its defensives can be challenging to learn how to use in the beginning, but it's well worth the time currently. Assassin is one of the strongest, and it's strongest it's ever been offensively, and it's better defensively than what it was last patch in 5.0. I highly recommend learning the resolve system if you want to play Deception. Currently you'll see Def Knell on all assassins, as it's amazing in general for all 3 specs. You'll probably see 2 cloaks as a typical tactical to help with Def Knell's uptime. Highly recommend rushing these if you decide to play Sen, as it's a must-have to be effective. So basically what you get is, some cooldown reduction on rounds. Not on board. However, it gives you a stack of reckless critical, making your next assassinate or maul critically hit stacks up to 3 times, right? That's important. Whenever you consume a recklessness charge, you gain a stack of reckless slaughter, increasing your damage done, your melee damage done, by 10% for 30 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times, so that's 30% damage boost on things like maul. That's quite a bit. So with the ability to be able to stuff out and reset your recklessness and doing it all over again, you can kind of keep a whole minute, if not more, of just pure 30% damage boost, which is really, really strong. So I will show you real quick. So you have to use a yellow ability to actually get your critical mauls, right? So now I have 3 stacks. I want to immediately stealth out, recklessness again, and then I'm going to have 30% damage boost on my mauls, which is pretty crazy. I did not have a duplicity stack there. If I could get one, I could probably hit pretty hard. So he does 75k with that 30%. Like, being able to reset and immediately go back into it with the 30% damage boost, you can really hit some high numbers on people. That was 84k. But doing this in PvP, you clearly see how this is really strong. Now, I'll put the pros and cons for this class in the background. Assassin overall is one of the strongest in the meta right now. In solo ranked, having multiple of the same class can turn the tides even against the best of players. Its ability to control off guard, taunt, and burst makes it hard to deal with, along with the potentially 11 plus seconds of CC immunity they can spam. Solo rank does fit their playstyle in most situations. Getting support roles in your games can work, however they're usually not to your benefit. Assassins and Regs is pretty strong. With constant resets, by getting out of combat, you can truck pretty much everybody. It's a very silly class in regs, being able to go to person nuking them once you learn how to play it. I'd recommend this class over the rest if you want to do ranked and enjoy playing control/burst playstyle. It's very, very strong. Others are compared to this class right now rather than the other way around. Alright, now to cover Operative/Scoundrel. Operative's playstyle is tactical, control, and burst. It has an AoE directional mez, a cleanse, a sap, and self-heals. The most unique self-heals also, spinning 1 GCD every 15 seconds to upkeep 2 probes, passively healing. It can also be placed on allies. It's the strongest all-healer currently of the 3 total. It has good DR and passive healing from stim boost, making it hard to target to get free damage on, along with 2 DCDs that absorb/evade damage. It's not your typical class for Star Wars. It also has a reset on some abilities, one being stim boost. Its burst window is deadly thanks to its tactical, making all 3 hits an auto crit. The damage goes off in 2 global cooldowns since volatile is a delayed explosion. It's also yellow damage, so it can force things out of a player by itself. It also has the strongest reflecting game, reflecting 150% damage if the player hits into it. Then it has immunity roll, giving it 200% defense chance for 2 seconds while rolling, meaning you're not landing anything when it rolls around. Double rolling, they can stack 4 seconds of immunity. It's about 8 to 6 second cooldown for each roll. What you'll see often on Operatives is the Tactician set. It gives 10% crit and resets backstab after tactical overdrive. Also getting an extra stack of tactical advantage with a flat damage and healing increase by 5%. You'll also see the Debilitator set, lowering the CD on roll to 6 seconds and debilitate. The hard stun gets 2 charges. Tacticals you'll see is Volatile Strike, giving Concealment triple auto crit, Viral Elements for lethality, giving it an AoE backstab, and a Toxic Blast spread. Both specs are deadly. Viral Elements hits the main target twice, chucking players rather hard. It shreds players that guard super fast also. While being a .AoE spec, its off-healing is off the charts. Getting a hot crit increase after backstabbing, it can also mez with flashbang without its own dots breaking it. The trade-off for playing lethality is that you lose God roll, leaving you sometimes rather vulnerable. Lethality also has .dr, which I believe is gained pretty early here. Let's find that real quick. Right here. In addition, you always take 30% reduced damage from periodic effects. Then there's another one here that I wanted to point out. Can't remember. Here, I found it. So here, your periodic damaging effects don't tick on targets affected by any of your sleep effects. In addition, you always take 30%. Well, it's basically the same one that I read earlier. However, I did not read the first part, so my bad. This right here is super good. But taking a quick look at the Tactician set, just in case you guys are curious or just want to see it, this is what it does. The 5% damage increase is super good, but the critical is definitely the better part of it. So I'll show you what my stats are when I hit something. I'll show you the triple auto crit too. So we'll go in here, pop stim boost, which is pretty nice for the most part. I'm at 64 crit. That is huge. 62 now. That's quite a lot of crit, and you keep that for the most part all the time, as long as you keep a TA, I believe. Or at least the damage boost, I think, is related to that. But it's very clear why this is so good. And then can can always, I guess I don't have the keybind set for it, but I can always use the reset and get a mastery boost, which makes me hit even harder. Obviously, if I had my real life procs, I would be hitting really, really hard, which makes it a very deadly, very deadly burst. For the most part, all the passive healing on this class makes it very obnoxious to deal with. In the background, I'll put some, pros and cons for this class. There's not very many cons, I'll tell you that right now. Operative in the current meta are without a doubt at the top. They thrive in 4v4 DPS games. They will work with support just fine. They're hard to deal with because their damage is yellow. Only in coordinated PvP will you suffer. For example, group ranked, but even then it can work. And ranks, they're nearly unstoppable when played well. They have all the tools they need to mess with multiple people at a time, only being threatened by other operatives and assassins. I recommend this class for everyone. It's not too complicated to play in its current state, and it's capable of so many things right now. If you're looking to have fun in regs or play solo ranked, you will find some sort of enjoyment from this class. However, there is a learning curve to learn how to keep up HOTS and using its DCDs. And that's pretty much all. I hope you guys enjoyed or found something useful out of this to help you select what class you want. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to comment. I will more than happily help. We'll also, obviously have a document pinned down on the bottom in the comments. For the most part, you'll find a lot more useful information there. And that's all. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. I have many other videos like this and more to come. If you have any questions, feel free to comment as I play every class, and I'm more than happy to help. For more information, check the description. As always, thanks for watching.